Typhoon Sinlaku is now one of the strongest storms ever recorded, with sustained winds of 200 miles per hour, gusting to 235 miles per hour, and a minimum air pressure of 878 millibars. The storm is moving northwest at 11 miles per hour and is an extremely powerful Category 5 typhoon currently. Here's the forecast. We have it strengthening even further, actually, 12 hours from now at 205 miles per hour, and will then absolutely blow through the Mariana Islands near Tinian and Saipan, with winds around 185 miles an hour, and then the storm's just going to gradually weaken from there on, and this historic storm will come to an end eventually after that. Here's the wind threat. The red is major, yellow is hurricane force, and the green is tropical storm threat. So we have Guam under a tropical storm threat right now. Not really expecting too many impacts in Guam. For yellow, we have the northern part of the Northern Mariana Islands and Rota Island, which those are expected to get typhoon conditions. Those areas are expected to get some decent impacts. And in the red there, major typhoon winds, we have Tinian and Saipan, which those two islands are going to get absolutely steamrolled by this typhoon when it moves through, and it's just an awful situation that's happening right now. Here's sea surface temperatures. Good sea surface temperatures, 28 degrees Celsius, some areas of 29 around the storm. That's between 82 to 84 degrees Fahrenheit. So good sea surface temperatures with extremely low wind shear currently. And the storm is still intensifying due to these conditions. Here are the hazards from the storm. Damaging winds, obviously. Sustained winds of well over 100 miles per hour expected on these islands, particularly on Tinian and Saipan, and wind gusts of at least 170 miles per hour, which are capable of completely destroying buildings and ripping tree limbs off. Flooding, we also have highlighted with rainfall up to 16 inches, which is capable of causing flash flooding and landslides, and a storm surge that will likely exceed 13 feet because of how powerful this storm is and how powerful it's going to be when it moves through. Here are the other agencies. We're running at 200 miles an hour right now based off satellite. Force 13 a little bit behind, 190 miles an hour. JTWC has been way behind on this storm for a long time. They're going at 175 miles an hour currently, which is better than their last advisory, but still, they're undershooting the storm entirely. Let's move on to the satellite and model predictions. So here's the Zaire imagery on the infrared imagery. This yellow here is minus 80 degree cloud tops. You can see that extends around the entire eye of the storm, which is extremely well defined and an extremely good eye. With a temperature of 22.6 degrees Celsius there, it's a very warm eye. And this overall structure is extremely well defined with this donut, they call it. And these cloud tops surrounding the eye are actually getting higher. If you can see that, they're actually getting higher and they're looping around the eye, which is a sign that the storm is intensifying, and the eye temperature has been fluctuating a little bit, but it's staying relatively consistent. It has been going up a little bit recently. This storm is a beauty to look at, I'll say that. Then for visible imagery, obviously it's nighttime over there, so this is the visible imagery currently. I don't really have much to say about the storm at this point, other than the fact that it's extremely powerful and is not gonna be a fun time over in Tinian and Saipan. RGB is just the same thing. All these are just the same imagery, but different colors. This one doesn't have as much of the little white dots everywhere, but this shows a much clearer storm. And obviously, water vapor imagery. This is the water vapor imagery I'm used to. You can see here, extremely moist storm. So that's going to help contribute to a lot of the rainfall that is going to come from this storm. So let's move on to the model data, which, as you can predict, is far behind right now. 920 millibars by the GFS with sustained winds of 110 knots. It's much stronger than that, I can tell you that. And as you can see, pressure dropping 6 millibars from what it's at right now. That is what's more important to read. A 6 millibar drop would put this at 872 millibars based off its current intensity, which would be a near record. That would be very close to a record. You can see not much weakening before it gets to land. That's a 4 millibar increase from what it's at right now, so that'd still be an 882 millibar landfall. which would be among the most intense on record, and then the storm just kind of skyrockets off north and becomes an extratropical cyclone. HFSA 928 millibars. They have this deepening an additional 9. Is that? No, that's an additional 11 millibars, which if it deepens another 11 millibars, that would be a record. Yeah, so majority of these show this moving through the Mariana Islands at or near its peak intensity, which if that happens, that's going to be a catastrophic situation. So, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm repeating myself a lot, it's just, I don't really know how else to describe this storm other than this is not what I was expecting. Half-say parent is running with a 130 knot peak, which is stronger than that right now. Much stronger than that right now, actually. And it's just moving through the Mariana Islands near its peak intensity, which is what majority of these are saying. ECMWF absolutely breaks the website every single time I try to look at it. We've also got what's left of Vaianu here, which made landfall in New Zealand as a fully tropical storm. So that's only the second time in history that's ever happened, I believe. But obviously, the main focus of this is on Sinlaku. This is the most recent infrared imagery. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see this eye. It's a very good eye, as you can see. Basically perfectly symmetrical. It's been a little wobbly in the most recent frames, but basically perfectly symmetrical. Now we can go check the weather conditions. Which, this is the winds. As you can see, those significant winds really starting to reach these islands. We go over here to Tinian and Saipan. Those significant winds really starting to get there, like Monday afternoon in UTC. And you can see these winds here getting extremely high as the storm moves through. 100 knots, which is 115 miles an hour. That's massively lowballing it for wind gusts. But this storm is look at that, 107 knots right there. Yeah, so there's that. Rainfall accumulation, obviously. Very high. You can see about 13 inches right here, 14 inches in some places, and right down here near Guam and Rota, 12 inches. Now, Guam is still going to get impacts from this storm, so let's kind of shift over to that a little bit. So, between like 10 to 12 inches of rain, they're still absolutely going to get impacts from the storm, just not nearly as severely as the rest of the islands. Wind gusts. You can see there are wind gusts of about 55 knots, which is about 65, 70 miles an hour, I believe, something like that. So they're still absolutely going to get impacts from the storm, just not nearly as severe as the rest of these islands. And for there's one thing you can check on here to check cloud tops. I mean, there's this, but I don't really know how to read the feet thing. So I kind of gotta figure out how to work this. Yeah, I don't know. Sea temperature, you can see obviously. Okay, where's the center at? Okay, up here. So sea surface temperatures, you can see under the storm is very warm right now, about 28, 29 degrees Celsius. They're going to be extremely high for most of the storm's track up until it gets up around here. They're going to start cooling down a little bit. But still, very high sea surface temperatures. That's what's really helping this storm. Let's look at the wave power. This is new. I do not know how to read kilowatts, so wind waves. 26 feet, which is pretty decent waves. Got a good swell too, which is, there's the eye. 19 feet, Swell 2, obviously, around here is not super high, about 8 feet, and then the third one I imagine is even lower than that, yeah. Still, air turbulence, I don't know what EDR means. I don't know what a lot of this stuff means. There's one thing we can see how high the cloud tops are. Is it literally? Okay, yeah, it's literally just the satellite. So, obviously you can see in the eye, nothing. But these cloud tops around the eye, basically all minus over 80 degrees, is a little rough patch right here. That's just getting closer to the eye, so generally those do tend to dip a little bit when it gets around the eye. And these cloud tops over here actually are pretty high too. There was one spot of minus 90 earlier. I don't know if it's still there or not. Maybe. I saw minus 89. Yeah, somewhere around there that was minus 90. Yeah, so this is a extremely impressive and extremely dangerous typhoon that we were not expecting to happen. Weather radar isn't quite over yet. That's some very impressive snowfall. Yeah, so you can see these outer bands are just now starting to reach the Mariana Islands. Not super high rainfall coming from these, about half an inch an hour. It's not super high. I got this little patch right here, it's about 1.5 inches an hour. So these outer bands are starting to get there over the next hour. I don't know why this does this, but they're just gonna continue to do that. For some reason, you can look into the future with the satellite, which, what does that even look like? Yeah, I can assure you this storm will look nothing like this in an hour. But regardless, very, very extremely impressive typhoon that we were not expecting this kind of intensity from. But that is really it for this update. So, like, subscribe, and goodbye.